There are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on Earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. Aaron Russo's films have been nominated for 6 Academy Awards as well as 7 Golden Globes, winning 3 Golden Globes. His latest production is a documentary, America from Freedom to Fascism. And let me tell you, it will kick you in the stomach. I watched it all the way through. Aaron, welcome to Politics and Religion.
Thank you. Glad to be there. I like the religious part. I'm not so sure about the politics part, but...
Gotcha. Well, great job on the documentary, on the film. And I've just been thinking today, if everyone in America watched this documentary, how would it change our future, our country? And I'm just glad you're our guest on Politics and Religion today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much. I see your emails that you send out regularly. I like what you're talking about because it's very important that people in this country wake up to what's happening. And we have to spread the word. That's why I made the movie. I mean, you can only do so much, and most people don't read books anymore. And so the films is the way that you reach people. Films and television is how you reach people today. And no one made a film like this, and I figured it was about time someone dealt with all the issues that we're dealing with.
It's fabulously done. You started out to investigate the rumor that there's no law requiring Americans to pay an income tax. What started you down this path, though? What did you learn in the process?
Well, it's really interesting because I've been hearing for years that there was no law that requires Americans to pay a tax on their labor, and I sort of dismissed it, because I've been taught for so long. But of course, there's an income tax. Taxes and debt. Those are two things that are absolutely necessary. And but I've been hearing these rumors for so long. And I decided that I would investigate it, and I called the IRS up, and I wanted to talk to the commissioner, and but they gave me the public relations person, and I started asking him some questions about the income tax, and he directed me to their website, and when I went to the website to look it up, I didn't see anything there about any law. I mean, I saw a lot of what I call now propaganda that makes you think you have to pay a tax. I never actually saw a statute written by Congress that makes you pay a tax on your labor. And so, knowing that the IRS doesn't write law, only Congress can write law, I decided to investigate it further. And the more I kept investigating it, the more recalcitrant the IRS was, the more difficult they became in a sense. And they didn't want to show me any laws. So I decided to go ahead and make this movie because there was something wrong. As I started investigating it deeper and deeper, I began to uncover the truth and what happened. And I saw why there have been so many people saying what they said about there not being a law. But most of the problem is most people get caught up in the IRS code. You see, and to me the code was really irrelevant. It's much more fundamental in the code because what's happened here is that in 1894, the government tried to pass a law requiring Americans to pay a direct unapportioned tax on their labor. And the Supreme Court said you can't impose a direct tax on the people like that, and it's unconstitutional. So it stopped. In 1913, to get around what the Supreme Court said, they passed a constitutional amendment allowing them to do that. Of course, the amendment never was actually ratified legally, but let's put that aside for the moment. It doesn't really matter for a second. And so they said the 16th Amendment in 1913 allowed them to tax the labor of the people. And for the next 3 years, they started taxing the Americans. But then in 1916, 2 Supreme Court decisions came out that said the government does not have the legal authority to impose this direct tax, unapportioned tax on the labor of the people. And it stopped in 1917. They stopped it. and because the Supreme Court is the ultimate arbiter of that.
So you're saying the income tax was stopped in 17?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so because the Supreme Court is the final arbiter, the government had nowhere to go, and so as I was researching the movie, I discovered that the Federal Reserve System was also established in 1913, the same year as the IRS, the same year as the income tax, and I found that kind of interesting. And as I did more and more research, what happened was in 1913, when the government gave the right to coin and make money to the Federal Reserve System and took it from themselves, they then had to pay interest to the Federal Reserve System to coin the money, to make the money, to issue the money. And to pay them that interest, they imposed this income tax on people's labor. They took the money from the laboring people and gave it to the wealthy bankers.
We should have listened to Abraham Lincoln, shouldn't we?
Yeah, well, Abraham Lincoln said it very well, but the Constitution says it very well. So the Constitution says the government the Congress has the authority to issue and coin money, not a private central bank. And along the path, I discovered that both the graduated income tax and the Federal Reserve System, the central bank, are both actually planks out of the Communist Manifesto.
Now, Aaron, slow down just a second right
Sure.
there, because that's a huge point. The Communist Manifesto put, I think, 10 stipulations that had to happen to a nation to move that nation from freedom to communism.
Right.
And two of those, as you mentioned here, was number one, the establishment of a central bank, and number two, of a graduated income tax, because that's the means whereby you redistribute wealth.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so you're telling me that the Federal Reserve is a central bank and that the graduated income tax, both of those planks in the communist platform, were entered into law, or at least were established in 1913.
Exactly, and that's when America changed. Exactly. That was the beginning of the end of the American government as we know it today. Because I think today, after what happened last Thursday, we've reached the end, and now we've got to restore the Constitution back to its proper place. Our job is, I don't think we can save it anymore. Now I think it's time to restore it. I think it's gone, and it's our job as American people and freedom-loving people to shut down the Federal Reserve System and make sure it doesn't exist any longer, and restore our government to a government that's for the individual, not for the institutions. I mean, if you went out in the street and you asked people what kind of government is America supposed to be, and you asked 100 people, 98% would say it's supposed to be democracy. And that's a lie. That's not accurate. It's misinformation that they've put on the people over the years. We're fighting for democracy in Iraq. No, we're not fighting for democracy in Iraq. They use that word. They think it's a positive word. But what we're fighting for in Iraq is globalization, the New World Order. And so the difference between a democracy and the constitutional republic that America is supposed to be is vast. And when I explain it to people, all of a sudden they wake up. They go, "Oh my God, I never realized that before."
Aaron, would you be able to, in the time we have right now, to give a nutshell definition of the difference between
Sure.
a democracy and a republic?
Sure, I was about to. Absolutely.
All right.
In a democracy, 51% of the people control 49%. And that's not freedom. I wouldn't want to be one of the 49%. That's not freedom. It's majority rule. It's tyranny of the majority. In a constitutional republic like America was founded as, 99% of the people can't take away the rights of 1%. You have rights because you have God-given human rights. Because you were born. You have rights granted you by God. And no other person, no government, nobody can take them away from you. They're yours. Where government gives you a privilege under democracy. And if they give you privileges, they can then take them away from you whenever they want to. And they charge you for those privileges. And so the big difference is that when I had a teacher in Denver the other night when we did the opening, and I explained how it happened in the schools, how the schools are now indoctrinating children. And she said, "Well, I don't indoctrinate children." I said, "Of course you do. You probably don't even know it." I said, "What kind of government is America supposed to be?" She said, "A democracy." You see, you're wrong already. It's a republic. And when I explained to her the difference, she said, "Oh my God, you're right. I've been hoodwinked as well, and we're hoodwinking the children." And so, people have to see the movie to wake up, and the movie gets much deeper. And because we've given the power of coining money to this private bank, they now control our government. You know, as Rothschild said many years ago, he who makes the money makes the rules. You know, I care not who makes the laws of a country as long as I issue the currency.
Okay, we're getting close to our first break, Aaron. Let me just pause here. You've released this film. You say when was the release date?
Well, the original date was July 28th. We put it into 5 cities.
Okay.
And I wasn't happy with the print, so now we just re-released it. And last weekend in Denver, and then this week we'll be in Dallas.
And do you know where that's going to be in Dallas?
At the Angelica Film Center.
Okay.
Dallas, and we're going to be in Los Angeles, and Phoenix, and Tucson, and Nashville, and Salt Lake City as well.
Well, your people kindly sent me a preview copy of it. I watched it. I've watched it twice, actually. Because,
did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, good.
It's riveting.
It was fabulous. It just sort of grabs you by the throat and won't let you go. And it's about a lot more than not paying taxes. It deals with the Federal Reserve. It deals with the Real ID Act. It deals with the loss of freedom here in America, things that we desperately
the New World Order.
Yeah, you did a wonderful service to us. I want to thank you for that, and I want to say to all of our listeners out there, you're going to enjoy it even while it's sort of kicking you in the stomach. So Aaron Russo is our guest. We'll be back in just a moment. I was talking to one of our staff members here at the End Time Ministry who had just been through your video, Aaron, and he was talking about different aspects of it and the fact that even though it's a documentary, it's more like a film in that it just sucks you through. It's not a boring thing by any means. It's riveting. And he was laughing as he was commenting about it. He said, one thing about it, I watched the whole thing. So I said, well, that tells you a lot.
It will keep your attention. It will grip you.
I've been very fortunate to be skilled at making movies. And one of the problems has been that a lot of the stuff done about the income tax and the police state in America, you know, the kind of pedantic and kind of boring in the Federal Reserve System, and they're sort of sophomoric. I try to make a movie that everybody in America could see and wake up to the truth, because there are many people who know what's happening, and there's millions who don't. And I made this film so everybody who doesn't know can learn, and we're having great success at that. And the people laugh at the film, they cry during the film, they get astounded, they get outraged, you know. You learn, and it's done in a style that people sit back and they just enjoy it. They're riveted to the screen. They don't move. They don't get up to even go to the bathroom during the movie. It's amazing. And standing ovations wherever we go. And I'm of all the films I've made, by far and away, this is my proudest moment.
Aaron, do you think that this could change the course of our country?
I think there's no question if it gets out there. If people see the movie, there's no question. I've seen enough response from people. I mean, we've previewed it in many cities. We've tested it. The response is overwhelming. It's unbelievable. And there's no question that I can change this country if it gets out there. People just let other people know about the movie. I mean, I've had great difficulty, first of all, in making the movie because no one would help me finance it, and so I did it myself. But then when it came time for distribution, it was even more difficult because you know what happened. A lot of the movie people saw the movies. I won't distribute this. I can't distribute this. They were afraid.
Yeah.
So we've had to do it ourselves.
Because what's the most feared entity in America?
Well, the IRS.
It's the IRS, and so you're striking at the heart of this thing.
Well, to me, the heart of the beast is not the IRS. The heart of the beast is the Federal Reserve System. I use the IRS to show the American people what a fraud the IRS is in the tax on your labor. There is no tax on. There is no law that requires you to pay a direct, unapportioned tax on your labor. And the movie proves it to the audience. They realize it. I mean, I sat and said to the IRS commissioner. I got to interview the former IRS commissioner. And we were having this discussion, and you could see him getting more and more angry as the interview went along. He finally tried to stop it. And I said to him, well, what about all these Supreme Court decisions that say you don't have this authority? And his response was, it was an amazing response. His response was, Supreme Court decisions are irrelevant to the IRS. Oh, no, inapplicable. Supreme Court decisions are inapplicable to the IRS. They don't apply, as if they're above the law. You know, and that's how they get away with it. They get away with it through fear. through intimidation. There is no law. But the point of my movie, just to help here, is not to tell people not to pay the income tax. Because, it's to me, that's not what the movie's about. To me, the movie's about the RFID chips, the ID card, the police state, and the one world government. That is the point. I use the IRS to prove to people that there is no law, because everybody thinks there is. Once they understand there's no law, then they can accept the rest of the movie.
Where have you been all of our lives?
Learning. Life is a process. I believe God put me here to do this movie. And I guess I had to learn about politics and making movies. I ran for governor of Nevada, and I spent many years making movies. And it's only because I went through those processes that I was able to make this movie. So life is a process, and I believe, God has led me here. I do.
Aaron, I was talking to a good minister friend of mine recently. He's a very outstanding person, well-read. He's not a flake. But he looked at me. We were talking about world affairs and what's happening and how both parties have fallen under the same power, and that there's really no difference between the Republican and the Democratic Party these days, at least very little.
Exactly right.
And he looked at me. I said, what's the hope? What's the answer? He said, I don't think we can recover this without either a revival or a revolution. And he said, I hate to say those words, but he said, this thing's so far gone. He told about meeting with Congress people, and he's had influence. But he said, I've written to them, and he said, it makes no difference what you say to them. They've got the bit in their teeth, and they're going right where they're going. They know where they're going. And it's like there's no way to affect this system any longer.
Well, there is a way, and I believe the way to do it. And no one's ever done this before, and I think it's important that we do this. I believe the movie has a call to action at the end of the movie, how to stop it. Look, the people have to understand the real problem we have in America is not Republicans and Democrats, red states and blue states, whites versus black. That's all ridiculous. Okay, that's imposed upon us by the government themselves. They want to polarize everybody. So the first thing that has to happen is we have to join together and stand together, all Americans, and realize it's time to stop being good Democrats. It's time to stop being good Republicans, and it's time to start being good Americans. And when you're a good American, that means you stand for individual freedom of the individual, the person itself, and not the institutions. Okay. Once people understand that, and we start organizing in the way Mahatma Gandhi did, the way Martin Luther King did, and the way I'm about to organize this to do this now. All right, to start a new movement in this country. One people, one movement, freedom for all. And what we're going to do is we'll get millions and millions of people to march on Washington, to boycott businesses, to shut down this government, like other places do. We've become so relaxed, we've stopped doing it. And we're getting thousands and thousands of people going to the website, signing up to volunteer, who want emails to know when we're going to start doing this. We're going to, and the way to do it, and this is what no one has done before, is to join together to shut down the Federal Reserve System. That's the head of the beast. No one's done. We've never had any. We had marches to stop the war or to stop segregation or different things, but we've never joined together to shut down the Federal Reserve System because they've had this air of respectability about them. They live in this cloth of respectability. Oh, Alan Greenspan, the greatest guy in the world. Well, these guys are animals. They're evil, and they're destroying this country. And they've taken away our borders. They've taken away the sovereignty of this nation. They've destroyed the Constitution. They're going to chip everybody. And we better join together and stop it now. And no one's ever done that before. We've never attacked the head of the beast.
I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's pause to give your website so people can go there, Aaron. Would you give it to us right now?
Sure. It's www.freedom2, and it's spelled T-O, not the number 2, freedom2, fascism, FASCISM.com. freedom2fascism.com. And you go there, you can ask for emails, you can sign up and volunteer. You can see clips from the movie. I urge you to get to the movie. I urge you to send this link to everybody you know, because we are organizing, and we are getting thousands, and eventually we're going to have millions of people who are going to shut down the Federal Reserve System. See, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Nobody knew what was going on until they pulled back that green curtain, you see, and you reveal the master, the wizard. Well, in America, the wizard is the central bank, the Federal Reserve System. They control our government because they control the money. And we have to shut them down and restore the money creation in this country back to our government, backed by gold and silver again. That's what has to happen. We have to have sound, honest money. One more time.
So in order to get that done, you're saying that we have to repeal the Federal Reserve Act. Would that be the correct way to go about it?
Exactly. And Congress has the authority to do that.
But the Congress is getting funded by the people who control the money of the Federal Reserve. Do we expect these people to have the courage?
Well, Congress gets funded by the government because the government makes requests to the Federal Reserve to get the money. The Federal Reserve can't deny them the money. So the point is this, is that if you have millions of people, like let's say, like I just came from Chicago, and a lot of the church members there were talking about that they love my movie. They love my movie. And they're saying, well, you know what we should do? We should make any politician that comes to our church to speak to us sign an affidavit before they're allowed to speak that they will vote to shut down the Federal Reserve System. Well, they can't speak at our church.
So our own government is a slave to the Federal Reserve System.
Exactly.
Thus why we should have listened to Abraham Lincoln. The government should produce and issue the money.
Exactly. Well, Thomas Jefferson, and that's what the Constitution says. Whether it's Abraham Lincoln or the Constitution, that's what it says. And so we have immense power. What we have to understand is that everything the government does and the Federal Reserve System does is designed to get us to cooperate. We have to cooperate. Once we stop cooperating, they have nothing. You understand? It's only because we cooperate that they win. So we have to stop cooperating.
Well, we've got 2 minutes before our next break, Aaron. Let's take a stab at bringing to everyone's attention the Federal Reserve and the fact that it's really controlled by private stockholders, people with huge amounts of money, and that they actually produce the money for the United States of America and then charge us interest on what they have produced, and it takes our income tax, much or all of the income tax, according to what you said in your movie, goes to pay the interest on money that we should have produced ourselves and we would be paying nothing on. Now, is that true?
Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly right. And whether or not all our income tax goes to them or not depends on the rate of interest at the point at that time. So, but between interest payments to these bankers and see, the government doesn't have to borrow money. The government can create money. So all this interest that the government's paying is ridiculous. But between interest payments and government waste, not 1 cent, not 1 penny goes to, for infrastructure of the country or goes to provide the services the taxpayers think they're getting by paying the income tax. It's all a fraud. The whole thing is a fraud.
So the government used to print the money, and we paid no interest on money that was printed.
Right, it was done by productivity. It was backed by gold.
But since the Federal Reserve Act came into being, the Federal Reserve Act prints the money, and then we borrow it from them and pay interest on that.
Exactly, and they print the money based on the credit of the American people. They're not printing any. They're just printing money. They're using computer digits. Have nothing.
It's a good deal for them, but it's not a very good deal for us.
That's for Sam. That's for sure.
Yeah,
we'll be right back.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Aaron, back to the Federal Reserve. We got a lot to talk about. Plus, I know our callers are going to want to talk to you, but it was against the Constitution,
yes,
to have an income tax.
Well, no. Let me clarify this. A lot of people get mistaken. An income tax, it's legal to have an income tax, but you have to define the word income. Income has been defined by the Supreme Court as a corporate gain, a corporate profit, not wages, not labor. So while some people say an income tax is constitutional, it is, but it means a corporate tax, a corporate gain. It doesn't mean the tax on people's labor. You see, the idea is this. Each one of us owns our own life. I own myself, you own yourself, and the government doesn't own any of us. All right? And so because we own our lives, we also own our labor. So when we work with somebody and we give them our labor, we're giving them something we own. And in return, they're giving us dollars or whatever they're giving us as payment. And it's an exchange, something each own. So it's not a gain, it's not a profit, it's an exchange. And it's not taxable. And the Supreme Court has ruled that. So you can say income tax is legal, but an income tax would be a tax on corporations, on gains and profits. See, the Constitution provides that if they're going to tax you directly, which a tax on your labor would be, that would have to be done by census and apportion amongst all the people. They cannot have a graduated income tax on your labor. They can apply a tax on your labor if it's apportioned and done by census. So let's say the American government needs $300 million, okay? Now, and the state of California has, let's say, 10 million people living in it. And there's 300 million people living in America. The state of California would have to get $1 from everybody in California, $10 million, and send that into the federal government. That would be done by census and apportioned equally amongst the people. That is totally legal and constitutional. But it's very difficult to do. And the government knew that when they did it. You see, the founders knew that. And so when people say they can't have an income tax, yeah, you can have an income tax, but it's a corporate gain. What you can have is a direct, unapportioned tax on your labor. That's what you can't do.
And you're telling us that the courts, including the Supreme Court, has ruled thusly.
At least 8 times. At least 8 different occasions. And what's so interesting is the lower courts no longer go by what the Supreme Court said, even though they have to. Like in the case of Irwin Schiff, here's a man who was fighting the tax situation in court, and he was trying to present to the jury and prove to them that there was no law requiring him to do this. And as he was telling that to the jury, as he was explaining it, and this is a direct quote right from the judge, he said, "Mr. Schiff, I will not allow the law in my courtroom." Can you imagine? I will not allow the law in my courtroom. And then Schiff says in return, but the Supreme Court said, and the judge goes, irrelevant, denied. Supreme Court is irrelevant, denied. You see? And so we have no more law in this country.
So has Mr. Schiff appealed that to the Supreme Court?
He's in jail.
But has he appealed that ruling to the Supreme Court?
Not yet. Not yet. The Supreme Court won't hear the cases anymore.
I see.
See? So he's in jail for 13 years for a non-crime, for doing nothing wrong. On the other hand, when you have an honest judge, many of the tax honesty movement win in court. You know, we show where Franklin Sanders won. We show where Vernice Kugelin won, where Joe Bannister won. I mean, you know, a lot of it depends upon the judge. And unfortunately, juries today don't know what their real obligation is. Juries today have the ability to nullify the law if they want to. It's called jury nullification. If you're sitting on a jury and you think that the law is unconstitutional and wrong, you vote not guilty. You don't have to listen to the judge's instructions. It's not necessary.
I thought one of the most effective parts of your film, Aaron, was the lady juror that you interviewed.
Oh, Marcy Brooks, yes.
She kept demanding to see the law from the judge, and the judge would never show her the law. Consequently, they ruled not guilty.
He can't show her the law. It's not there. It doesn't exist.
And she said there was another juror that woke up, all of a sudden the light bulb went on in their head in the middle of the trial and said, "You mean I don't have to pay income tax?"
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You mean I don't have to pay income taxes?
Yeah.
You don't. You know, and that's what it is. But the problem is, and why I don't advise anybody not to pay it, is because they come after you. You know, not in all cases. Most cases they don't come after you.
Yeah.
But in many cases they do. And so I can't tell people not to pay and then advise them that, because then if they get in trouble with the IRS, they don't know how to get out of it, because the IRS will use guns and force and power to put them away.
And we would certainly take the same stance as you, Aaron.
So what we're saying here is this film is not just about the income tax.
It's not about that at all.
It's about America. It's about tyranny. It's about the encroachment of government in our everyday lives, of them getting ready to force us to have a national ID card. And what are we going to do about it? Where do we draw the line? If not now, when? That's what it's all about. Craig, we're ready to go to the phones. A lot of people lining up to speak to Aaron Russo. The film is called America, From Freedom to Fascism. You know,
you have to drop the from. It's America, Freedom to Fascism.
I did the same thing. Excuse us.
Okay.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
America, freedom to fascism. Let's go to the phone.
To the phones, listening in South Carolina. Amanda, welcome to the program. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, yes, how are you?
Doing great. You're on the air with Aaron Russo.
Hello, Aaron. This is Amanda Moore out of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm one of your mini promoters.
Hello, Amanda. Hello.
Mini, as an M-I-N-I. I'm calling to tell you what a great job you've done on this. Everybody that's seen this film, all of my pre-screeners, have just gone nuts over it. They're on fire to show this film to the American people, and as well they should be. You've just done a magnificent job in exposing the corruption that's been going on for decades, and I hope there's a sequel. I really hope there's a sequel, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we need to get some backing. So if there's anybody out there listening with deep pockets who wants to save America, feel free. Call Aaron Russo, okay?
Yeah, that's very sweet, Amanda. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the kind words.
You're more than welcome. And keep up the good work. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Once again, the website is www.freedom2fascism.com. And you can get all the information you need there if you're interested in becoming part of winning back America from the huge, encroaching world governmental system that we are being sucked into against our will right now. Back to the phones.
Listening to us in the United Kingdom. Richard, welcome to the program.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. The question I'd like to ask Mr. Russo is this. I realise that the United States has got a debt money system as a result of the Federal Reserve. Is it the same in the United Kingdom with the Bank of England?
Yes, it is.
That's what I thought.
The Bank of England is a private bank, no different than the Federal Reserve, and most people in England do not realize that. And that's why George Bush and that's why Tony Blair are like two peas in a pod on the Iraqi war. It's because the Federal Reserve and the Bank of England promoting the New World Government, the One World Order, and to take over and dominate the Middle East. And that's what they're both doing. It has nothing to do about Iraqi and terrorism. It's about promoting globalism. And the Bank of England is no different than the central bank. As a matter of fact, the Bank of England owns part of the Federal Reserve.
Yes, we understand the Bank of England was a huge player in the whole creation of the Federal Reserve.
That's correct.
Is that true with most central banks throughout the world?
Yes, it is. And that's what the movie gets into later on in the movie. We talk about how all the central banks of the world work together and how they're promoting a one-world government, and that most of the governments of the world are controlled by these central banks, and people think it's their it's like in Europe. Take the European Union, the European Constitution. Didn't the people of France and Denmark vote it down? Yes, but they're not stopping it. They're going about it anyway. Even though they voted, they didn't want it. And what's happening is the central banks of the world control the governments of the world. And that's why the world is in the shape it's in today. Because you have these private bankers controlling our governments. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, I thought it was more or less like that. I mean, officially the Bank of England has been nationalised, but I rather didn't believe it.
No, the Bank of England is totally a private bank. And so Josiah Stamp, who used to be a director in the bank, has one of the best quotes in my movie, talking about how, how the bankers own the earth, and if you took away from them all their riches, but yet you allowed them to create money again, then with the swoop of a pen, they would own the earth again because they'd make enough money to buy everything back in one fell swoop. As long as you can make money.
I read that in the last Trumpet newsletter just today, actually. But anyway, it's very interesting, and I listen to your program virtually every evening over here, and I very much appreciate what you're doing.
Hey, Richard, we're flattered you called all the way from England.
Okay, thank you very much. I shall continue listening to you then.
You have a great day.
Bye. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Aaron, an example of what you're saying to all of us is the government has now passed the Real ID Act. None of us want to be numbered. None of us want to be forced to carry ID cards. But they don't care what we want.
That's right.
They're cramming this thing right down our throats.
And that's only if we cooperate. See, that's the point of my movie. Stop cooperating. Don't accept the national ID card. I'm not going to take it. Don't accept it. Don't allow them to give it to you. Even if it's in your driver's license. Do not accept it.
We're talking to Aaron Russo. Before we go back to the phones, Aaron, I want to ask you, This is a pretty hard-hitting documentary. Have you received any response from the government yet?
Not directly, no. I've had some strange phone calls, but I don't really pay much attention. I don't look over my shoulder. I just do what I do. I go forward because I believe that I'm here doing what I'm supposed to be doing on this earth, and I don't pay attention to that. Because if I did, I couldn't do I couldn't do the good job that I'm doing. And my responsibility is to wake people across America up to what's happening and try and organize and get everybody together so we stop cooperating, so we shut down the Federal Reserve System. Because without shutting down the Federal Reserve System, nothing's going to change in this country. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't matter whether George Bush is president or Hillary Clinton is president, the same things are going to happen in this country. And it's time to stop it, and we have to stop it by stopping cooperating and shutting down the Federal Reserve System and forcing all these politicians in office to shut it down. Because when millions of us join together, and they don't polarize us anymore, once we stop being polarized and we join together, we're going to win. And that's what we have to organize and do.
All right. Aaron Russo is our guest today. The film is called America, Freedom to Fascism. And if you'd like to be with Aaron on the air today, give us a call. Let's go back to the phones, Greg.
Listening to us on KBTT. Ed, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me on the program. Mr. Russo, thank you so much for your work. I am one of your supporters, and I get email updates on what's going on in your program. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
What I'm calling about is it's my understanding that a reason that the Social Security Act has been in force is that they use that as collateral for the Federal Reserve. Is that correct? I mean, from what I understand, it's to the tune of $600,000 to $1 million per person as collateral to the Federal Reserve.
I don't understand your question. What do you mean? I mean, I know that all the money paid into Social Security is not there. That just goes.
No. I'm talking about every human life that is born. The Social Security number, they use that person. The amount of money that they make in their lifetime is estimated $600,000. And they're using that as collateral for the Federal Reserve.
I have heard that, okay, and I understand that to be true, but I can't say it is true. I've never seen evidence of that, and I think to see evidence of that, you'd have to go into the Federal Reserve books, and they've never been audited, and they can't be audited, and so it's very hard to prove that, but it would not surprise me.
Aaron, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do the people who control the Federal Reserve have enough power to take a president down?
Yes, totally. I mean, let's look at this. All 4 presidents who have been assassinated have been against the Federal Reserve System.
So you can't just get in office and ignore them?
Well, I think you can. I mean, I think you get in office and not ignore them. I think you have to get in office and shut them down. I think you have to put yourself. I mean, the problem is many people in government are part of the Council on Foreign Relations, and which in a sense is joined at the hip of the Federal Reserve. The upper level of it is, and so you have to go into office and sweep it out. I think what you have to do, the best way to do it, is to get the American people to insist that the Federal Reserve System be shut down and that we stop cooperating. Again, I say, if we don't cooperate, there's nothing for them to do. They have nothing to run here. It's only because we cooperate that they get away with this.
So it's courage that we need.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get back to the phones.
Listening to us on KBTT. Phil, welcome to the program.
Yes, I'm a first-time caller, long-term listener. Aaron, I have 2 questions for you. The first question is, realistically, where do you see this going in the future? And the second question is, what kind of resistance do you expect? Because, as you just said, if these people have the power to take down the president, they have the power to take down someone like you who's distributing this information.
Oh, of course they can take me down in a second if they want to. There's no question. I don't know that, but I don't worry about those things. I mean, if they take me down, somebody else is going to pick up the ball. The fact is, my movie has been made. It's out there. It's going to be all over DVD. It's going to be all over the internet, and they can't stop that anymore. It's there. And if I go down, someone else will come in and lead the parade. That's not something we have to worry about, in my view. And as far as where we're going to be realistically, when? My point of view is that that we have a chance to win if the American people want to win. If they have the courage and the spine and the backbone to join together, right, there's no doubt we can win. The question is, do we have the backbone and the fortitude and the courage to do it? I mean, there's no question. If we want to do it, we can do it. We have the power. We have all the power. Because they have to control us. And once we say we're not going to be controlled anymore, they have no more power. You see? So but the difference is that we have to organize. They don't. They have the money. They have the media. They have everything in their hands because they make the money. So for us to win, we have to organize. We have a hard job. But we can win if the American people will stand up, like everybody listening to this show. Is everybody listening to the show going to go on the website and join up and register and to get emails and things? I doubt it. But if they did, it would go a long way to just winning. I mean, it's all it takes is for us to say, we're going to do it. Do what Gandhi did. Do what Martin Luther King did. Do what they do in a lot of the European countries. America used to be known for standing up and revolting against oppression. Now we don't do it anymore. And I'm telling you, it's time to do it.
Well, you're right, Aaron, and on our website at nonationalid.com, we have asked people to sign up there that they will not vote for any politician that will not commit to the repeal of the Real ID Act.
Right.
And you're doing the same thing here as far as asking us to demand that politicians running for office before we vote for them, that they will come out and say, we need to bring down the Federal Reserve. And so we're really talking about the same thing. They're bound at the hip. So
not to come out and say it, but to sign an affidavit saying it.
Yes.
In other words, sign an affidavit saying, I will vote to shut down and don't vote for anybody that won't sign the affidavit. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Or independent. Only vote for people who will sign that affidavit.
I think it's time for America to become the home of the brave, because you can't be the home of the land of the free if you're not willing to be brave. We got time for one more caller. Let's go, Craig.
Listening to us in New Orleans. Katie, welcome to the program.
Hi. I had a two-part question. One was, what is your timeline that you expect before the government issue out the mandate to get the microchip, and will the church be raptured up? Might be before that passes for the microchip. Before that law passes, will the church be raptured up before that? And when do we expect that? Like a time frame, maybe a year. Something?
I lost the first part of the question. You faded out on me, so I'm not sure what you said.
All right.
Let me repeat it for you because we're breaking up there, Katie. She's asking when the government will actually issue microchips to its citizens.
Well, in May 2008, when the Real ID Act goes into force, the Real ID Act will have an RFID chip attached to it.
And you're speaking now about the national ID card that's required by the Real ID Act.
Right, which takes effect in May 2008. And they're going to do that through your driver's license.
And the second part of her question, Aaron, was, will the church be raptured before this happens?
I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Okay. Well, tune in tomorrow. We'll be talking about that because we got one more quick call. Let's go there.
Listen on the Internet. Alona, how are you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you for having me on. You know, the thing that as I'm listening to this program, I am struck by all the ways that we seem to want to wiggle and not draw a line and not say this is it. This is where I go no further. And I'm just wondering what Aaron thinks it will take for people to finally say, let's draw the line here. I mean, are we going to wait until it's too late? I mean, I know I'm asking you to look in your crystal ball, but what do you see happening?
Well, I see people waking up right now, and I think that we have to have a mass of people like a magnet. You have to have a certain mass, and then once you have a certain mass, more and more people will come on board. And I think there are millions and millions of people in America who know that it's wrong, who want to make a change here, and we just have to organize them. And if we can't,
there's a lot of enthusiasm for this movie.
Yes, there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and as long as we can organize and get it done, we can win. If people don't organize and don't take part and don't help, it will be too late. I mean, then you're going to wait until they have the concentration camps open, and you're going to wait until, they bring in UN troops here or whatever.
Well, it'll be too late then.
That's exactly my point. Then it's too late. And so then you're fighting a different battle. You should fight the battle now while it's an easier battle to win, and yet very difficult.
We're about out of time. We appreciate your call, Lona.
You know, Aaron, I do believe the moment of truth has come for our nation. If not now, when? If not us, who?
Well, I believe God is leading us in that direction. I really do, and I believe that's why I made this movie. And I believe that's why people are responding to this. And I think people will be judged by how they respond to this. If they allow the Federal Reserve to control our lives, and they allow the government to chip us and have ID cards, we're going to get what we deserve. And if you don't have the courage to look, there's only three choices you have. You can either leave the country, right? You can live within the country, mind your own business, and take no part in it, and get chipped and become a slave and a serf, and your children and grandchildren become slaves and serfs.
Ain't chipping me.
Or you can fight back.
But you know, Aaron, if you leave the country, where do you go? This is happening worldwide.
It is happening worldwide, but I'm saying to you that, there are places that aren't as oppressive as here yet,
But America could stop this whole thing. It could become a haven.
Like it used to be.
Yes.
That's why America is such a wonderful country. You could come here and be free. You could be the person God intended you to be. You could live up to your God-given potential. Now you can't anymore. They're turning you into serfs. Everything is debt-based. The courts are fixed. They're corrupt. The Federal Reserve is corrupt. The graduate income tax is corrupt.
Aaron, quickly tell us about the film one more time, the location in Dallas.
The film is at the Angelica Film Center in Dallas. And it's going to be playing in Houston and Salt Lake City and Phoenix and Tucson and Nashville this week.
Is that this Friday here, Dallas?
This Friday in Dallas.
Okay, we're out of time, Aaron Russo. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless you.